Thank you. Afternoon, everybody. So, Surrey's journey to automate pothole detection. So, as we've heard this morning, innovation's not necessarily quick, and this certainly hasn't been a fast journey for us, as I'll talk a bit about, but this has been about 6 years, and we're not quite at the end of the journey yet, but we're getting there. So in terms of Surrey, so we've got a fairly large network at the moment until they split us in LGR. We fix around 50,000 potholes a year, and we have 14 highway safety inspectors currently. And then beyond that, we also have some customer inspectors who look at the customer reported defects as well. So when we started on this journey, like everybody, there were corporate aspirations around digital innovation, climate change. We also had a new term maintenance contract that started a few years ago. So back in 2019, when we were looking at this, we were, anticipating that happening. So some of the challenges, thinking back to 2019, in our previous contract, the customer inspections were a function for our term maintenance contractor. When we moved to the new contract, we wanted to take that in-house. We had issues, like I'm sure lots of people do, having duplications of reported defects. We had difficulty identifying failed repairs and also assigning defects to the safety matrix correctly. So what we did in 2019 was we were approached by a company called Ad Strategy, who were putting on hackathons with different industries. They'd come across us because they did some utility hackathons, and some of our people were there. And so they asked us, what are your big problems? And we said, well, potholes. Potholes are one of our big problems. Much as I hate talking about potholes, it's a reality. So they facilitated a workshop for us. And instead of just having, materials people and, general highways people, there were lots of different types of people. There were SMEs, there were people who developed apps, there were people from Ordnance Survey, all sorts of different people, so that we could, maybe get some ideas from different sectors, a bit of, blue sky thinking. So out of that hackathon, there were a number of ideas. We had people suggesting we should be geotagging potholes so that we could get better locational accuracy. That was something that we did look at for a while, but actually the technology at the time was a bit too fragile to throw in the back of a gang's vehicle. It just wouldn't have lasted very long. Collaboration with utilities, that's still something we looked at. One of the suggestions that came out of it was, can we get utility companies to fix potholes if there are potholes within the limits of their traffic management while they're doing other works? And then the one that really piqued our interest was the idea of using video and data capture and optimization through AI to identify and tag potholes. So we moved forward with a proof of concept, where what we weren't sure of at the time, there were lots of already companies that were doing video and AI for road condition, the GACE, the Visalas. They were already active back in 2019, but they were very much looking at road condition rather than safety defects and potholes in particular, and actually measuring the length, the width, the depth, and being able to classify according to our matrix. So the proof of concept was to establish if the technology existed to replicate what highway safety inspectors did. And we talked a lot about funding this morning. We were lucky at the time there was some corporate funding for transformation, and there was support from a team that helped us with the procurement and with writing the tender and things like that. So again, that's, we talked this morning about how difficult innovation can be, so some of that kind of support really helped get us off the ground. We had a number of people, obviously, who tendered for the work, and Route Reports were the successful company that we've been working with since. So timeline, as I said, it has been a long journey. We've spent the last 5 years moving forwards, and I think, again, when we talk about the funding, one of the things for for tech companies and sort of anyone who's looking at innovation from a local authority point of view, make it affordable for us. If you've got a finished product, then obviously sell it for the market value. But if you're looking for us to help you develop something that works, then keep it affordable and we'll keep coming. You know, we could have stopped working with them after 6 months when the product wasn't completely there. But actually, you know, it worked for us to work with them. And I think Connell's here, he'll agree that they got as much out of us as we did from them, which is why we were able to carry on working and pushing the product forward. So where we've got to now, 2025, we are transitioning to fully automated inspections. So a bit about the technology. So the devices are loaded into our highway safety inspection vehicles. I think the bit that you can see on the screen there goes into the dashboard, and then there's a camera on the screen. So this isn't using phones, it's actual cameras and technology on there. And then the data is displayed on their bespoke platform. And we also have a link to Confirm, which is our works management system, to have a dual link backwards and forwards with the two platforms. We decided to install the technology into our highway safety inspection vehicles. Again, back in 2019, there was lots of talk about putting these kind of things on bin lorries or buses and things, but for us, we really wanted to be able to compare what the technology was telling us with what our inspectors were telling us, so that we could then teach the technology what a highway inspector does. So initially, when we started working, so this is an example of a defect that was recorded by route reports, and the same defect that was picked up by the highway safety inspector. So all good and positive. But then we also had examples of defects that route reports logged but weren't picked up by the highway safety inspector. And those examples, as you can see, is probably because they're too narrow, they're too not deep enough, they don't meet our safety defect matrix. And then also we had defects that the inspector recorded, but that route reports didn't pick up. So there was, certainly at the outset, 5 years ago, there was a range of things. So as you can see from that chart, when we first started, January 2021, we had probably about a 30% match rate between what the system was picking up and what the inspectors were picking up. But throughout the process, route reports took that information and used it to retrain the system to make it more accurate, make it learn what a safety defect was, what the inspectors were picking up. And so by the end of the first year, I think we got to about 85%. Now we have a 95% match rate, which is similar to two people. You know, you're unlikely to get 100% if you send two people down the stretch of road. And that ongoing training is really important. So every month, the training carries on to improve the accuracy. Also, validation by audit, so a bit more manual process to ensure that we're getting accuracy. We still have periodic manual inspections to make sure that what the system is picking up is within tolerance of the manual inspections. And again, the results are used to improve the AI and the measurements. There were some challenges when we started using the system as well. So low light, especially in winter, was giving less accurate results, and so that was solved by testing lots of different cameras. You know, we're still testing new cameras. Route reports are always looking to find, you know, if there's something new and better. We're just waiting for some more new cameras to turn up to go into our vehicles. Different weather conditions. And that was solved by having just using lots and lots of training so that the system was used to identifying what a defect is in various different conditions. And one that sort of interested me, the system was less accurate when we started out, when the inspectors were just carrying on with their normal routes, and the route reports was going on in the background. So them stopping made the data less accurate. So when they actually drive it just as a route without stopping, it's it's more accurate and obviously it's faster. So this is how the defects are presented on the dashboard. So the image, you can just see the red box, so that's the defect, and then below it you've got various bits of information about the length, the width, the depth, etc. Currently, 2 clicks are needed to export the defect into Confirm, but that's just while we do our sort of final checks and make sure everything is completely accurate. But ultimately, there will be no need for human intervention. The defect will go straight into Confirm and raise a job for our contractor to fix. Calibration, this is the one, if anyone's heard me do this presentation before, this is beyond me really, but Connell and the route reports guys are upstairs, so they can give you a bit more detail, but this is just kind of to let you know that they do make sure that the information they're providing is accurate in terms of where the defect is and what its depth is. So moving on, obviously potholes were the main reason that we started this, and in terms of our driven inspections. But actually, a side effect has been inquiry handling. So we get over 1,100 inquiries a month, so the public reporting defects to us. And because we've got that dual link, backwards and forwards link with Confirm, if we've got recent data from one of our surveys, then someone can go in and do a desk-based review and see if that defect is a defect and can log it there, which particularly in times of high volume is particularly helpful to not have to send an inspector out to everything. So resident inquiries can also be solved, so it's not necessarily a pothole defect. Obviously we get inquiries about lots of different things, vegetation, all sorts of things. So in this image you can see there's a sort of slightly broken guardrail. So if we get an inquiry about that, we can go in and have a look at that, and then you can actually draw on the image and raise that as a repair from the desktop without someone having to go out there. So again, that's something that's going to really speed things up for us. They're also collecting information on signs, so we can again raise defects on signs. And PAS 2161 that we heard Laura and Adam talking about yesterday. So when I did these slides, it was before the list was published, but obviously now we know that route reports have been accredited to PAS 2161, so that is very positive as well. As I do have a little bit of time spare, I'm just going to do a little segue. In terms of PAS 2161, although DFT have obviously been the people who've been setting up the new systems, accreditation and audit and governance of road condition surveys falls under UKRLG. And so Scanner, for instance, up till now, the sub-board of UKRLG, the Road Condition Management Group, manages that. Moving forward, so I've been chairing the Road Condition Management Group for 13 years, which is way too long for anybody to be chairing a group. So I'm standing back from that. So this is just a plea for any local authorities. If you're interested in road condition, if you're interested in getting involved in sort of the national picture, we are looking for a new chair. So feel free to contact me or Laura, and we can move that forward. It's also a good time because chairing the RCMG, you'd also have a seat on the roads board. And as you may be aware, the codes of practice are being reviewed this year, so you'll have an input into that as well. So it's for particularly, if you've got someone young, up and coming, get them involved. So that's just a little extra plea. But moving back to safety defects, legal insurance were, key people to get on board before we moved forwards with this. So we had discussions with our legal teams and with our insurance teams. My colleagues down here from our network safety team on the way up to Blackpool stopped in Birmingham to do a presentation, the same presentation to Zurich insurers, and they've done it before to others as well. They're all really positive about it, which has been brilliant. We also they had a session with barristers and sort of did mock trials using the root reports information. That all went really positively as well. Zurich were hoping to come here and do the last 5 minutes of the presentation, but they weren't able to because they've got another conference somewhere else. But they sort of highlighted that they had thought with these kind of technologies that there would be challenges from lawyers, but that hasn't materialised as far as they've seen so far. They also sort of highlighted that having more data could frustrate Section 58 defences, which is something that we'd thought about, and so we do only turn on the technology when the inspector is starting the route, so you don't have all of the data from their drives to and from, because if you've got the data, then you should be doing something about it. And Zurich, but they also said that they're really interested to see how AI in general can support smarter targeting of preventative maintenance, particularly to reduce and prevent hazards, because that's the ultimate for all of us, isn't it, is to get to the point where we don't have to deal with potholes too much because we've got a more robust network. So finally, like I said, so the systems has started to take over driven inspections. With the technology, it's being installed on 10 HSI vehicles. I mentioned 14 at the beginning, so we are looking to reduce the number of inspectors we have over time. And that was an issue with us. If you're, it's turkeys for Christmas, really, isn't it? We needed to have the inspectors on board to help us develop this, but they wouldn't have wanted to if they thought their job might be at risk. So how we've managed that is when anybody has retired or resigned in the last 4 or 5 years, we've replaced them with agency people, so we could reassure them we're not going to be making any permanent people redundant. So Root Reports are working on automating the detection of more types of defects. Obviously, potholes are the big one, but there's all sorts of other types of defects that need to be logged. And over time, as we start getting more and more data, as it's on more vehicles, that should speed up the training for all the other types of defects. We're reviewing when we'll be able to move over to fully automated inspections for driven inspections, which we're anticipating coming within the next sort of probably 3 to 6 months. As we said, PAS 2161 functionality is being expanded, and we're in a kind of fairly fortunate position that we will have it from Root Reports. We've got it from Visala and from Scanner, so we'll be able to do a really good kind of in-house comparison of the different technologies. And again, like DFT said yesterday, it's not just the 2161, it's what other sort of information that different technologies can provide us to help us make asset management decisions that we'll be looking at as well. And again, Root Reports are developing analysis to assist in long-term asset management, so some of those things that the insurance companies want, that analysis to have all this data and actually do something useful with it to help us make decisions, again, is something that they're looking to do. So I think that's about it. Thank you very much.